Hey everybody, welcome to Coach's Corner. Here you will get a behind the scenes look at Petra Coach and your ability to ask our coaches anything you want. We are streaming live on Facebook and you can put your questions in there, or you can do it in the Q&A section on your Zoom account. Now, we had about 900 people registered for this webinar, so we know there's going to be lots of questions. So please get your questions in early. They're already flowing in, and we're going to do our best to get to all of them today. My name is Eric Frank, and before we get started, I'm going to have my other two coaches introduce themselves. So we'll start off with Miss Mandy.
Hey guys, Mandy Burge, Director of Operations here at Petra, coming to you from Petra headquarters today in Nashville, Tennessee, and happy to be here.
And I'm Greg Eisen, coach here at Petra, and longtime serial entrepreneur. And I'm thrilled to be here and answer any questions I can to help folks manage through these times.
Thank you, Greg. And I am Eric Frank. I am in New Orleans. I am married to my beautiful wife, Rebby, and I have two small children, Elijah and Cecilia. How about you, Mandy? How's your home looking these days?
You know, we officially came back to the office on Monday, so this is my third day back. And at home, I have a husband and I have three little kids. I have a 1-year-old Piper, 3-year-old Cooper, and 6-year-old Kennedy. So this is a nice little break for me to actually be back in the office with other adults and not at home full time.
And you, Greg?
Yeah, I'm actually enjoying this change of pace as well. I've got young kids, 9 and 6, and they're extremely well behaved. My amazing wife has got them lined up doing homework and all the things they need to do, and I'm really enjoying scheduled times with them during the day. So we do a daddy-daughter walk at 6 p.m. every day. It's something we look forward to every day. It's become a routine. And one of the questions that I ask a lot of my clients is, what are you doing differently today that you're going to continue with for the rest of the year? And for me, that's one of those things. I've got a number of others, but I'm really enjoying that.
That's great, Greg. And Mandy, how about you? Since you've been working at home, any funny or memorable moments that have happened with your family?
You know, it's been, my husband and I both obviously work full time, and having the 3 kids at home has been challenging. You know, for best practice, we would start every morning and we would kind of go through and say, what calls do you have? What calls do I have? We would make sure that the other person was on kid duty. We would kind of save our focus time for nap time or the evening time. But they were not fully watched, I would not say 100% of the time. So we did have a couple hiccups along the way. We had Cooper, my 3-year-old, got into red fingernail polish and got one of our blankets and just sat there and started like painting the blanket. And so we had to unfortunately throw that in the trash. And then our other little goof that he did was he took one of my husband's AirPods that he uses for calls all the time. And actually he had like a water bottle like this, and he was playing like little toys on it. And then he dropped the AirPod in the full bottle of water. And so we said we've had 2 casualties from the last couple of weeks, but so far it's been interesting and memorable to say the least.
I think you have a few interesting ones, Eric.
I do. So a follow about the AirPods, because my daughter Cecilia, who's also 2 like yours, loves to steal my AirPods as well and hide them or drop them in places. So I've now bought 5 individual AirPods from the internet, and I'm always looking for best prices. So was he able to buy a single as a replacement?
You know, actually we pulled it out super quick and put it in rice because that's what the interwebs tell you to do, and it worked. So it's still working for now.
Well, you guys are more resourceful than me. I go to Amazon and buy one because generally they're lost and can't find them. But yeah, Greg, the funniest thing that's happened to me since being at home, you know, in the Petra world, we were doing lots of webinars. And so in one of my first webinars, I was doing it from right where I am today. And I had all my monitors set up. So I had a computer and I had a monitor, and then I had a third computer. And I was doing it early. And my kind of rule was I only did webinars in the afternoon when Cecilia was sleeping, but this one had to be done earlier. So it was 10 o'clock. So I'm doing a webinar and the door opens, which is never good. Once the door opens, you know nothing good is happening behind it. So my daughter walks in and she's completely naked and she's holding her diaper over her head and she's swinging it over her head. And I'm literally giving a webinar like I'm talking now. So I'm looking out the corner of my eye. And my first thought is, I wonder if that diaper is full or if it's a fresh diaper. And she's swinging it over her head and she's screaming, "Daddy, I'm a rodeo clown. I'm a rodeo clown." And because we had watched a rodeo cartoon the night before. And she just starts to circle me. So she's stepping over cables of computers and desks that are all set up, circles me 3 times, and then just walks out of the room. And none of the spectators at home knew anything had happened. But it's a memory we'll have forever. So that's always fun.
I'm sure our viewers have similar stories, so they can relate.
So the questions are flowing in, guys. So thank you so much at home for putting these questions in. Putting these questions in. We've got a question here, and this really fits kind of with what we're talking about. It's around time management. So how about we throw this one to you, Greg? What are your coaching clients, what are you telling your clients right now to do around time management with so much going on around them?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, listen, time management is a problem or a challenge, I should say, no matter what, especially as leaders of organizations, you know, managing the hustle and bustle, but particularly in these times with all of the information that is thrown at us left and right. You know, the answer is the same. How we go about handling it, it's a little bit different, but the answer is often the same. And it really comes down to a handful of key practices. You know, one of them is focus, right? We have a tendency to want to multitask and do a dozen different things at the same time. And we know that does not work. We need to focus on those most important things. And we need to work those to completion. And it doesn't matter whether you're the CEO of the company or a frontline worker. So prioritization is really paramount in today's environment. You know, one of the things that I see folks doing, and I do as well, is real time blocking. I mean, I'm literally blocking off time in my calendar to focus on certain activities or certain concepts. Another thing that I do is, you know, everybody makes task lists, right? Most people make task lists. I make topics lists. So I allocate time to think about certain themes or certain topics, and I find that helps me to focus my time as well. It's one thing to go ahead and pursue a list of tasks, and that's important, it needs to be done. It's another thing to also allocate time to think about major problems, major challenges, major themes. So I have a topics list and a task list. Mandy, what about you?
I like that. You know, when you're going through and you were talking about kind of doing time blocking, one of the things that I've always found important, and as you said, it's the same pre-COVID and post-COVID, is time blocking and really making sure that you're blocking that time in your prime time. One of the exercises we'll do in a planning session is to think about your day and think about when your prime time is. And every person's prime time is different. A lot of folks, I would say traditionally, a lot of folks have that morning prime time. Like they just like to come in and get after it. For mine, I'm actually more of kind of an end of the day. I work really well under pressure. So that like end of the day coming, like let me make sure that everything has that bow on it and it's fully wrapped, is really my prime time. And so when I'm doing those time blocks, it's to make sure that I'm saving checking email or responding to stuff for maybe the time that I'm not going to be quite as focused, and that like really dedicated, I've gotten all the little stuff out of my way is how I like to do my morning. And then the afternoon is my like focus time. All the little stuff has been answered and replied to. I can really focus in the afternoon. So I think it's important to remember that prime time and know that every person's different. And so if you have a lot of people on your team, know your team members' prime time. With the group that I work with, like I know that I have some folks that are morning, some folks that are afternoon, and being cognizant of that, making sure that when I'm asking for their time, depending on what our activity is, that I'm being respectful of that as well. Derek, what about you?
Well, you know, that's a great point, Mandy. And there's a great book, Win by Daniel Pink, that talks about figuring out what time is the best day for you to do work. So he really says, you know, there's 3 types of people. There's larks, there's early birds, and there's owls, and everybody fits into one of those categories. So I'm very much an early bird. My alarm goes off at 4 o'clock in the morning. I get some good work done and I go to the gym, but by 8 o'clock, like, don't ask me to spell my own name. I shouldn't be touching anything important. I'm looking to race to go to bed at the same time as my children. My wife, Rebecca, calls me a grandpa because of it. So I think, a big thing is really figuring out what time works for you best, and then talking to your team and talking to your leaders about making sure that you're doing your best work when your body tells you that you should be doing it. Mm-hmm. Look, we got another question that's actually kind of right off of that topic. And how about we go this to you, Greg? So it says, what if you don't have enough time because your team is constantly bringing you their problems, and you feel like all you're doing is putting out fires and you don't have enough time to work on your own priorities as a leader? Greg, how would you coach someone out of that?
Yeah, I love that question. And it's one that I absolutely made the mistake of early on in my days. I learned relatively early that solving everybody's problems created more problems than it solved. And I came up with a bit of a slogan at that point in time, probably 25 years old, and I called it the 3 solutions rule. And I made a shift in my business and how I dealt with my teams. And what I told my teams was, listen, I'm here for you. My door is open. I want to help solve your problems. But do not come into my office asking me to solve your problems. Come into my office having thought through up to 3 potential solutions for how to deal with that problem. And I'll help coach you, help flesh it out. But I called it the 3 solutions rule, and it transformed my career. And I gave people the ownership and the confidence to solve these problems on their own, and that problem diminished from there.
Wow, that's a great nugget for us, Greg. Well, I'm writing that down as we speak. And I think that's really about your leadership style, right? So a lot of leaders feel like they have to solve the problems because they are king and they have all the answers and they know everything. And it's really shifting your leadership style to not jumping in and solving everything, which was probably hard for you. Was that difficult to transition?
It was very difficult, right? You, especially at that age, we got big egos. We think we know it all. We want to direct everything. And it took the ability to see past that. I mean, one of the things that I also learned at that age from my father was surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And that's hard to do too, right? And if you surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, then you're going to be in good shape. You're going to be able to grow your business in a way you couldn't otherwise.
That's great. My father taught me how to tell a good scotch from a bad one. So you got some better lessons, but it all equals out. We got another question that came in that I think fits pretty well with that about leadership. So Mandy, you've been working with companies and coaching companies for years. So I think this is a great question for you. What is the most important attribute that you think a leader can have, or that you've seen in a leader that you've worked with over the years?
So, when I think about this, everybody's in a really strange place right now. And I think that when I'm looking at overall leadership, the ability to listen, I think is number 1. I'm going to say right now, for the time that we're in right now, companies and organizations need a leader that can make a decision. It's a tough place right now. Everybody's looking for the answer. I keep hearing questions around, when are we going back to work? What products are we going to start selling? When do I put my kids back in school? Like, everyone's looking for the answer, and nobody really has the answer. There's not a manual out there. There's not somewhere that a leader can go call and go get that answer delivered to their team. But their team is looking at them to be the guiding light. People are scared, they're uncertain, will they have their job? And so I think it's incredibly important for a leader to be able to make that decision. It might be the wrong decision, and they can go back and correct that or have those conversations, but to at least be in a place that you feel comfortable to make a decision. You're not going to have all the information, nobody knows the answer, but pick something, move forward with it, show your team that you're there to lead them. I think is just incredibly important right now.
Great, thank you, Mandy. Great answer. And then as a follow-up to that, Greg, is there anything that a leader should not be doing right now, that should not be doing?
Well, just to add on to Mandy's comment real quick, I think the other the other key attribute besides being decisive is empathy right now, right? It's all about empathy right now. Leaders need to be good listeners, and compassionate, and caring and thoughtful. And I think that goes a very, very, very long way. What leaders should not be is burying their head in the sand right now, which is easy to do when faced with the kind of anxiety and stress and challenges that we're faced with. Being on top is lonely. Being a CEO, being a leader is lonely, and it feels heavy on your shoulders at times. And it's easy to kind of bury yourself in your office or in your home, close the door, and wait and see. And that's not what companies need right now.
Eric, you there? You might have froze for a minute. Well, Greg, we'll continue on. I did see a question come in. I'm going to ask this to you. So the question is, majority of our competitors offer lower prices for their services. How do we tackle the problem of losing clients due to price?
Yeah, that's a good question, and a challenging one. It's easy for me to say this. It's a lot harder to be in the midst of it. But any business I've been involved with personally, I've avoided competing on price. I don't believe on competing on price. I believe in competing on differentiation, on value, and would let clients go without a blink of an eye when it comes down to price only, because those are not clients that really care about you and your service and intend to be there for the long term. So that doesn't help you right now when you're looking at losing clients and such. My only addition to that would be, to really get to the root of that particular client or clients by asking questions on what their needs are, what their issues are, how you can solve them, building those relationships, and seeing if you can get around that. Because nobody wants to compete on price unless you are high volume.
Unless you're Walmart, we always say, like, there's quality and there's price and service, and you can't have all of them. So know what your niche is, and hold true to that. And I do think that's especially difficult right now. People are looking to save as much money as they can, both personally and organizations. So it is tough to be the high quality, high value, high price option out there in the market right now. But if that's your niche, the market will come around for sure. And there are plenty of businesses that are thriving right now. So you might have to hold out a little bit longer, but I wouldn't say to change the business model just for the short-term time that we're in.
Yeah, and I would probably go to my clients that are satisfied and happy with me, and I'd ask them, what do we do that makes us special? Why do you like us? Why do you do business with us? And really learn and none of them are probably going to say price. And then figure out, how do we frame other conversations around those quality aspects and not compete on price? And I've always been the one to say, look, do you go to the cheapest doctor? Do you send your kids to the cheapest school you can find? Do you do anything based on price that you really care about? Why do you want to start here? I was in the food business, and food's tough margin. I never wanted to be the lowest price. I wanted to be the highest quality. So I just think it's all about how you position yourself in the market too.
For sure. Eric, you mentioned something about referrals. You're always really great at asking for referrals from member. Are there any, tips you can give to our viewers that would help them for asking for referrals in this certain time?
Sure. Absolutely. So what I do is I have something called a flash roll. So a flash roll is a memorized cue that I'm going to use when I want to ask for a referral. So what I found is the very best time to ask for a referral is when someone says thank you. So when someone is appreciative and thanking you for what you have done, that cues me to say flash roll. So my flash roll is always something effective this. Mandy, I really enjoy working with you. You really have your stuff together. You are really on top of it. Every time we have an encounter, you almost know what I'm going to ask before I even ask it. Is there anybody else that's just like you? that could really use some help with their company, has their stuff together, but maybe wants to go from a level 4 to a level 5 leader? Can you think of one person specifically? So I compliment them on what I like working with them for, the reasons, and I get them to think about one person instead of anybody. So I never want to say, is there anybody you can refer me to? I always say, is there someone? And I get very specific with what that ask is. And then I also will say, just think about it. Could we make an appointment Monday at 10? I'm going to call you and you'll be ready to give me that name and give me a warm introduction. So now I've prepped them for it. They know I'm going to call them at 10 and they have the weekend to think about it and they're ready. And when I call them, I say, hey, Mandy, just like I promised, calling you at 10, really excited to get that name from you. And 9 times out of 10, they're going to have something for you.
I love that. I love that as a free option to get potential leads and to do marketing. Because like I said, I think a lot of businesses are looking for how to save some money. And we all know that marketing budget is one of the first ones to get cut if there is a challenging time. And so how can you still continue to get new leads and grow your business? And what are things that you can continue to do for free or at no cost that's still going to keep growing your business? We actually had another question come in on this free topic. It says, we are in a home care industry. How do we create free value to a caller?
Greg, you want to tackle that one?
Home care industry.
I'm not sure I have a ready answer for that one. We're in a home care industry. How do we create, say it again?
We're in a home care industry. How do we create free value to a caller? You know, Petros had to pivot a little bit in this. You know, I mentioned before that historically we have never been the low price leader. We have a high value and high quality of the work that we do, and the prices historically match that. And when all of this happened, we had to look at, people can't afford some of the things that we're doing right now, but people need our help more than ever. And so we took it upon ourselves to do a little bit of pivoting, and we started offering webinars with thought leaders that were normally a high price tag. We would have those people in, they were our friends, and so they would do it for us at no charge, and we offered that out to the public, not just our members, but everybody. We started doing workshops and webinars and just really started essentially giving away our work at no cost, knowing that it was more work. We were doing more work than we had ever done and getting no immediate dollar in return. It was the right thing to do. And it's building our base at the same time. And so it is a little bit challenging, I think, to do that extra work and know that there's no money coming in today, but we had to look at what does our end user need right now. And companies need coaching and consulting, and they need help, and they need business advice. And that's what we do. And so it's probably a temporary spot for us right now, but it was a pivot that we made to give that free value to our end user with maybe money on the back end, but maybe not. And maybe we've just built a lifelong friend or referral that will refer somebody down the road.
And here's a thought that occurred to me as you're talking. I completely agree with the general context of giving away free stuff, adding value under any circumstance. But why not ask them? Ask them what they need right now. Ask them what their biggest challenges are. Ask them what they're struggling with, and then determine what you can offer that you have a competency in, free or not, to serve that. In these times, and I'll emphasize this over and over again, there is nothing, absolutely nothing more important than being connected to your customer in any and every way possible. All the rules of the past you can throw out the door. However you can add value to your customer, you do it now. So find out what they need.
That's great, Greg. And we got another question that kind of is right around those same lines. It's about marketing. So the question is, our company has pivoted and we've been working ferociously behind the scenes. How should we let the world know what our new offerings are?
That's an interesting one. You know, I think a lot of companies are figuring out what they're going to go offer now. And for us, you know, I think we've looked at a good place to start with a new offering to even see if it's good, if it's viable out there in the industry, is to start with some of your current members, or your current clients. So if you have a product that you're looking to get out there, is it going to work or not? I think you can certainly start with your current base and test that a little bit there. Reach out to your current customer and say, is this something that would be interesting? Start there. And then I like to turn on light, I call it light social media marketing. Social media is free marketing for the most part. You can pay for Facebook ads and things like that, but it's a way to touch a lot of people really quickly and not have to spend a ton of money. So again, like a light feeler to kind of put things out there in the social media front, you know, before you invest in email marketing blasts and SEO and all those other things that have sometimes a high price dollar. I think there's a lot of creative ways that you can kind of put it out there to see if it actually works. What do you think, Greg?
Eric's probably got better insight than me on this, Eric.
Mr. Marketing?
You know, something I've been recently doing in workshops is something that John DeJulius actually came and showed us at Petra University a couple months ago, and that was doing a customer journey map. And so, you know, we have all these new offerings, and a lot of us are telling the same story that we were before. And even if we don't have new offerings, our customers, our clients' lives have changed, and they're in a different place. So there needs to be a new story told. So the way a customer journey map is, you know, we basically take our client from a month ago or 2 months ago, and we think about how are they feeling? What actions are they taking? Where are they doing their research? What outcomes are they looking for? And we start to understand how they were feeling. And then we move it to today. What are they feeling, right? Where are they doing research? Who are they talking to? And then how do we get our brand to fit into their life now? So we want to make sure that our story is answering how they're feeling, what they need, and whoever they're going to for referrals or advice, or if it's Google, we want to show up there telling that right story. So I've been having people do these customer journey maps in our workshops, and really about how their business with your solutions are going through their head as they're coming back to the office, and take that through kind of a couple months past and really understand what do we need to do for our team members and our clients going forward.
So speaking of that, we actually just had a question come in around heading back to the office. So I know that it's June. I think different parts of the country are going back and at different levels. How do we best help our teams to feel safe at work? Greg, what have you heard maybe from your members or from your clients that they're doing to make their team members feel safe as they come back into the office, or maybe they never left, maybe they've been there the whole time? I know you have some members in some different industries that maybe never went home.
Yeah, I have two thoughts around that. You know, number one is, as is everything in this time and age, I think we need to be really purposeful and planful. So we need to design a plan, whether it's a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, however you want to organize the plan. But we need to be really purposeful about the steps that we take. There's all sorts of resources out there the CDC is providing and others for what you should and should not do. You know, somebody needs to be responsible for keeping on top of the changes in the news media and the things that are coming out that require modifications. The second thing that I'm seeing and would recommend is a daily COVID-related huddle for when you come back. So every day, at the end of the day, have an agenda, have a structure for getting feedback of what's working and what's not related to safety and COVID-related matters, and be ready to be flexible and agile and make the little changes that need to be changed. You're not going to think through everything. I mean, who's thinking through whether you're going to reach into the ice bucket or not, right? Those are the things that I'm hearing. I just got off the phone with a client. I'm afraid to reach into the ice bucket. Well, they didn't have a procedure for that, right? So by meeting regularly, you can make these changes and react accordingly.
You know, that's interesting. Like I said, we came back on Monday, and when you mentioned the ice bucket, we have we call it Sonic ice, so like a little pellet ice that everybody likes. And so that's our fancy ice maker. And we have the same scoop that everybody uses. And so as we all go about, we have safety measures. We have moved desks. We came in and moved furniture a couple weeks ago. Hand sanitizer, masks. We've done a lot to really make the office a safe environment. but the ice scoop that every single person uses is just still sitting there. And to your point, we didn't put the ice scoop in our protocol. We didn't think about it. We went obvious. We didn't think about all the details. We had a hand towel sitting there. And I think the first day I watched 3 people all dry their hands on the hand towel after you wash your hands, vigorously multiple times a day. And I was like, we need to get rid of the hand towel. And so there's so many little things that you don't think about until you're here and you're watching people. And that goes back to your first point about making sure that you're having somebody that's continuing to update, continuing to stay on top of it, because it's changing, it's evolving. It's almost like a full-time job right now for somebody.
Yeah.
Looks like we just had another question come in here, and this one's about PPP. So that is a Greg question. It says, can you share the latest that you know about PPP loan forgiveness? So Greg, this is probably a 20-minute answer. Why don't you give us the quickest way for people to find out what they should be doing right now?
Yeah, so loan forgiveness is 5 times more complicated than the loan application process. The best resource for that information is at treasury.gov. Or SBA.gov. There's all kinds of guidance provided on how to go about that process. The latest is there's an 11-page application that you have to fill out after 56 days when you received your funding. There's a whole bunch of rules and such that will take too long to get into, but you've got to fill out that application. You've got to submit it. The government has a certain amount of time to get back to you. And the only thing I'd suggest is, only thing else I'd suggest is, 1, things are changing regularly, so you got to keep updated. And 2, I haven't looked today, but there's a bill going through the Senate right now that could change a lot of that. So there's conversation around extending the 8-week period to 16 or 24 weeks. And there's conversation now on changing the proportion of money that had to be spent on payroll from 75% down to 60%. And there very well may be some other changes. So it's fluid right now. I suggest getting a CPA to help you with if you're a larger organization, and keeping very close to what's going on. We have a number of workshops that we put on. In fact, there's one going on right now. So I'd recommend attending one of our workshops or webinars to get more information.
When's the next workshop that we're putting on?
So there's one going on right now. We have a lot of different workshops that we're promoting. The PPP one specifically, as Greg mentioned, we have one going on at the exact same time that we're doing our Coaches Corner. The next one that we have is on June 17th. You can see a list of all of those. If you go to the Petra Coach website under COVID, there's going to be a list there that says workshops, and you can click through and see the Back on Track. Do you need more business planning? Or would you like to focus more on PPP and some of the government lending? And you can hear from our experts there. So a lot of different options there.
Here's another question that just actually came in about workshops. So they're asking, one, a little bit more details about the workshops. What can we expect? How long do they take? And can we bring our team? Greg, you want to field that one?
Mandy would be better to explain this, I think.
Sure. Right now we have really 2 main workshops that we're doing. The first one is kind of the government lending. We're running those through the end of June. With the expectation, they'll probably stop at the end of this month. So you certainly want to make sure that you get in that June 17th workshop if that's something that you wanted to attend. Probably not continuing those in July as of right now. We'll see what happens with all of the bills that are currently out there. And then the other one is Back on Track. So for the first, I'll say for March, April, and May, we really did a focus on members are needing this DSRO, this defense stabilization reset and offense. There's a huge focus on getting members kind of over this hump and what do we do? And we're seeing now that with so many of our members and our clients that they're figuring out their new normal, whatever that looks like. And so we're starting to figure out, okay, here's what our new business offerings are going to be. Here's what our team might look like. And they need to start planning for what now? Like now that we're back here in the office or now that we're in this new work from home virtual, what is our business going to look like? And that actually goes back to a little bit more of a traditional Petra planning. And so those are actually called our Back on Track in Q3. The next one, it looks like, is going to be June 16th. And so if you're a person out there that you and your company, you've kind of settled a little bit, but now you need to help develop your plan for what's coming next, that's going to be the workshop for you. You're going to want to focus on, let's attend this workshop and see what are the goals, what are the targets. Still a little bit short-term planning. It's not that traditional, really far out, but it's a short-term planning on how do we get back on track in Q3, and then who's going to do what. And so it's really specific in creating those priorities for those individuals and then maintaining that long-term.
Great. And I'll tell you, so I hosted a workshop yesterday, and at the end of it, so one of the participants in the workshop is actually an EO Accelerator member from Charlotte. And at the end of it, she said, you know, I can't believe I came into this workshop thinking I had a lot of clarity on my business and where I wanted to go. And at the end, I realized that everything was fuzzy. Nothing was really specific. And I can't believe how much more specific you actually helped me get. And now she's interested in a full coaching agreement. So, you know, these workshops are free. It's a great opportunity to get some really, really specific thoughts about your business and where you're going. And it's a good opportunity to get introduced to PetraCoach and what we do. We have a question about that, which was kind of a lead in here. It says, I've heard about PetraCoach and someone pointed me to this Coach's Corner. Can you tell me exactly what a PetraCoach engagement looks like, both in person or virtual? And Mandy probably knows more about what a PetraCoach engagement looks like than anybody in the world, except for Andy, and maybe even better than Andy. So I think she can really handle this one well.
Except for the word exactly. That's the only thing that's going to throw me, because I will tell you the engagement it's different for every member. So that's why we have a roadmap that's customized for every single member. We call all of our clients members, and nobody's going to run at the same pace. You know, so the engagement is going to look a little bit different for each company because some companies that we've worked with, they want to come in and they want to implement everything. They want to do daily huddles tomorrow. They want to go get the roles and responsibilities defined. Their face and page chart is filled out within the first month. And there's some members that we've worked with for years, you know, and they're at 36 months and they're just now getting around to that because there's just other areas of their business that they focus on. So the time of it, I was going to say, is probably different for everybody. But the main difference within all of this, Petra has really started promoting our virtual engagements. We've always had them. We've had them kind of in our wheelhouse for a long time, but it was never anything that we probably promoted very much or that our members were looking for. And so we've spent the last 10 years traveling and doing face-to-face in-person plannings. When all of this came up, obviously all of our current members, we moved them to virtual, and then we started seeing that there's really a marketplace for that. And so it's really two different offerings. The outcome is going to be the same. The timing which it takes might be a little bit longer in one and the other, but you could certainly do a virtual where you're with a coach and an accountability coach. We're going through the same growth roadmap. So you're going through and implementing those same aspects of the Petra process, just virtual with a coach. So it's a little bit longer day because it's looking at a Zoom screen all day. Our team spends a ton of time on Zoom, but the outcome is going to be the same. And then you can also do an in-person, which I know that our team, it's so weird. Our team has traveled for so long. Eric and Greg, I know y'all are probably just dying, but our team spends their life in airplanes. Like we just go and we travel the country international. We have members in Canada. So we travel everywhere to go do these in-person plannings. We have all these touches to make it such an experience. And we're working on how to do that virtual. So our bread and butter and what we've always kind of grown up on is that in-person planning that's still available. I actually think our very first in-person planning on an airplane is actually today. I know that JT is with one of his members in Orlando today. So JT took his first flight yesterday and is going back to do in-person. And so those options are still out there. If somebody would like for us to come and do that 2-day in-person kickoff and then go from there and see you each quarter, we love to do that. I know our team is like anxious to get on an airplane. Greg, I know you're ready to go, get out of Connecticut and go see the world.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there.
You know, in last week, I kicked off a virtual member, and you know, it was pretty amazing. So the company's based out in New Jersey, but in the planning, they had someone in San Francisco, someone in India, someone in Uruguay, and someone in Panama. And we could have never coached a company like that before because they wouldn't have not brought everybody into New Jersey for that. And I thought two things. One, how blessed am I to be able to have an impact on people all over the world right now. And number two, how amazing is technology that we can touch people on 3 different continents in real time and do real live coaching with people and companies all over the world. That's kind of the biggest pit our toes a little bit. Am I better now? I know I was fading out.
Yep, you're
okay.
Good. It's just that it's the internet in New Orleans. It's a little slow. There's a hurricane coming.
There's a hurricane.
Eric, that's actually a good segue. And I'm looking at a question that had come in related to culture. So it's great that we could perform virtually here. It's amazing, the technology. But it likely makes it a little harder to maintain culture. The question that I'm seeing is, how are you seeing companies maintain their culture during these uncertain times?
Culture is tough. Culture is one of those things that in planning sessions, the core company that's all together, it's always easy for that group to have really strong culture. And if you're an organization that you have a couple of remote team members, you already know, you've probably felt this before, because I've heard it in planning sessions 100 times. We have a couple of remote employees and they just don't feel the culture that everybody here in the office feels. Like it's a long-term challenge. And now that everybody's at home, it's now expanded beyond just the people in the office, because now everybody's having to deal with that. I think I can speak from personal experience at Petra. We've done a couple of unique things. Notes of appreciation has always kind of been a core of who we are. And I think that those have really increased. And instead of just now sitting on someone's desk, the mail. So I would go to my mailbox and I felt like I always had a little note of appreciation. We call them little happies, what we kind of call them around the office. Somebody sent some flower seeds to go plant in the garden kind of this time of year. It's springtime to get that started. And it's just tiny little things to let people know that they're thinking of you. We had a third-party company come in called Camp Cloud, and they actually did a team building virtual interactive kind of Zoom session. It was an hour session and we got to do some creativity and some role playing. They gave us some movie titles. We had to use props around our house and come back and present them. It was silly. It was goofy. I think at first a lot of people didn't really want to do it. And there was so many laughs, so many memorable moments. And it's just thinking outside the box a little bit. So I know there's other companies that are out there that are offering stuff. Camp Cloud is one that we use. And they actually do have a Petra discount. If you use Petra Perks, they'll give you a discount if it's something that you want to use personally for your company. And so it's just been a little bit more creative. Eric, have you seen anything from your members that are doing anything different?
Yeah, well, you know, I was doing a workshop with a company, and it was supposed to be about pivot planning. So figuring out how they were going to pivot. And we did a SWOT analysis. So SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And the company gave their team as their number one strength. And then we got to weakness, and they gave team morale as their number one weakness. And I said, look, guys, we got a disconnect here. We got a problem. We don't need to be talking about pivoting. We need to be talking about fixing this, right? Because your number one strength can also be the number one problem in your company now. So what's going on? And so they started talking and sharing, you know, openly about, you know, they felt really stressed and they felt like their job was, you know, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. and they had no time for themselves. And it was just getting really, really hard and challenging to work. And I said, well, let's keep unpacking this. So what can we do? So they decided, you know, from that, everybody was going to have to take 30 minutes a day for themselves, time block it into their calendar, and report in Daily Huddle what they did for those 30 minutes. So it was mandated 30 minutes for yourself, put it in the calendar. The other thing, the CEO decided he was going to send everybody's family dinner once a month.
I like that.
So it helped local restaurants that were struggling, and it was one day a month where the family didn't have to cook. And then they did a group wine and cheese tasting from Commander's Palace here in New Orleans. And it was like all this stuff got brought up in this planning, in this SWOT. And if they wouldn't have spent, you know, those couple of hours really honing in on that culture could have devolved into something much worse. But we were able to identify it, come up with a solution, and then develop 3 outcomes to get them into a better place culturally, which I felt really good about that day.
I have a few thoughts on this topic too, and this is a topic near and dear to my heart. I'm a people first leader and people first coach, and culture is critical. Obviously, if you have core values and core purpose that have already been in place and articulated, that certainly is a great start. If you do not have that yet, I encourage you to go through some exercises, work with a coach to determine those, because that is the foundation off of which culture is built. But a few thoughts about culture. One is, it's clear as day to me as I observe leaders and have run businesses myself that it starts at the top. Those leaders that are demonstrative and maniacal about their culture and protecting it, without doubt, exemplify it, and it feeds down throughout the organization. Steve Jobs comes to mind, of course, as one of those. It also occurs to me that those companies that build traditions into their business, that exemplify those cultures, exemplify those values, sort of like religion is utilized, right? We have holidays that whatever religion you follow, we have holidays that showcase traditions that we remember that have become a fabric of the culture.
Greg, what's an example of like a tradition related on a value that a member might do?
Oh God, it could be something that Eric said. It could be that dinner gets distributed every single week. It could be ping pong every Friday from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock.
It's just like that thing that they do that like everybody knows it's going to happen. They can know it's coming. It's not like this one anomaly that's going to happen. Like they know that it's going to be there. They look forward to it. And it's just ingrained in their culture. Yeah. But it becomes part of the fabric of their culture, and it exemplifies their values and their purpose. Another thing that I see is symbolism. Right. So how do you build nonverbal symbolism into your organization, into your culture? And an example that I always relate back to is the early days of Jeff Bezos and the story of having a door as a desk. So their belief system was based on frugality and cost savings. And instead of buying elaborate desks for their staff, they had a wood door as a desk. And the symbol that represents, that is a great way. Think of how you can bring symbolism into your organization that exemplify your culture. So those are some thoughts. I love that. I'd love to see how creative companies have been in the last couple of weeks. Culture has always been something I think that's really important to Petra. And one of the benefits that we get as coaches is that we get to go in and out of all these different organizations and just see some really, really cool, creative culture ideas. I think we have a running list of them that we've collected over the years. And then now that's really pivoted, obviously over the last couple months into doing that virtual, and the creativity just like never ceases to amaze me. I know we did margaritas with Morgan as one of our team members here, and it was on Cinco de Mayo, and everybody had their little families together, and we did little margaritas. And my husband, his company sent him like a margarita kit in the mail, and it was Cinco de Mayo. It's a holiday. Some people do something for it, some people don't. But all of a sudden during this time, everybody took that as an opportunity to do some sort of cultural event. And so even just the smallest things, people have really celebrated. But also staying true to their core values and who they are, making sure, like one of ours is making an experience. And so always making an experience and doing something different for members. I love that.
Well, I think any cultural event that you can shape around alcohol is always going to be a big hit in some way. And in New Orleans, we see a tremendous amount of companies that have kegs or something in their office that constantly is able to serve alcohol, which of course is nice.
We might have one here in the Petra home office. We might have a little kegerator over there that we partaked in on Monday on our first day back. It was like a celebration of, we haven't seen each other for 9 weeks, and had a little beer on the back patio. And yes, I do think that a little libation. I saw your drink there, Eric. You need to show the viewers, is it a water? Because when you held it up, it looked like a beer.
It is a Waterloo.
A Waterloo, okay.
It is flavored soda water. And Waterloo is my new go-to from LaCroix. So if the Waterloo sponsors are out there taking sponsorships right now, I like blueberry, strawberry, and coconut.
Love that. I know that when you're throwing it back, I was like, there's somebody watching right now that's going to go, wait a minute, what is he drinking there?
It's not quite 5 o'clock yet, so I'm holding off.
Close to it.
Mandy, you were mentioning earlier how Petra pivoted to this virtual model. Greg, have you seen or heard any of the companies that you're working with that have really good pivot stories that you could share?
Yes, I'm coaching a member in Canada who makes test kits for the water industry primarily. They distribute these test kits to public and private utilities, industrial plants, et cetera, all over the world. And when COVID hit, they immediately pivoted to making COVID-related test kits and test accessories. They did such a good job that they won the contract from the government of Canada for $100 million and have really recreated their business in the last 3 months and are positioned to potentially go to $1 billion in the next few years as a result of that. So that story may go down as one of the greatest of all time. You may see it in textbooks, and I'll keep you informed with how we progress.
Wow.
That's great. What a story.
That's impressive for sure. And like I said before, there's some companies that are growing through all of this. You know, I saw something that said that Zoom stock, is just through the roof right now. And so another member, out of Canada, and some members are doing really, really well right now. So never forget about those ones.
Yeah, I saw that Zoom is now valued at $468 billion, which is more than all airlines combined at this point.
Wow.
So I'll ask this question. I know that both of you gentlemen are on Zoom all day. What are some tips that you do to not get Zoom fatigue? I know that a lot of people are in front of computers all day and they're on the phone and they're having to do more of this virtual. My husband's company, they have not given him a date that he's going to go back, and they've said, you might be back, you might be at home for a while. So what are some tips you can give to somebody that maybe is not used to this that you guys have experienced?
Yeah, for me, and I know not everybody has the same environments, but for me, having a window, I actually have 2 in here, and having some daylight coming in is really important. I open the window from time to time for some fresh air. For me, I take a number of breaks throughout the day where I get to go see my kids, like I alluded to earlier. I have a garden in the backyard, a 1,200 square foot garden, growing all sorts of fantastic stuff. So to go out to the garden and pick something is a great break. So I think you got to mix up the day. As chaotic as things are, as important as things are, you have to build in some me time, some breaks. I'm an avid athlete and into fitness, so I'm working out every single day. And that's critical to build in. And I don't always do it in the morning. I build it in the afternoon, sometimes in the evening, it depends. So you just got to mix it up. If you keep it the same every single day, you're going to go crazy. You've got to change your routines. Eric, what about you?
I've heard a lot of people talk about Groundhog's Day and how these days were beginning to feel like, the movie Groundhog's Day, where everything's the exact same. So that's really helpful to hear about kind of changing it up.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the things, I don't know if you know this, can notice, but I'm not sitting down. I never sit when I'm on Zoom meetings for any length of time. So when we coach in the room, we're standing up all day. So when I coach virtually, I stand up at least the first half of the day because I find it keeps me going. It keeps my blood flowing. I'm not, getting tired. And then for breaks, and this isn't in a planning session, and Mandy got to experience this with me. I always make our members do some sort of exercise when we're coming in or out of breaks at some point during the day if we're in person. So I do that virtually as well. So one of the things I like to do is we just do chair squats. So when we go in or out of a break, we just take our chair, we stand up, we sit down 15 times. Keeps your blood flowing. It's not too hard, but you're getting exercise and you're not falling asleep at your table. And then the final thing that I do is my son is home with me. He's 6. So anytime I get a break, we'll go outside and just throw the ball for 5 minutes or 10 minutes just so I get some good time with him. He gets off his computer or gets off his Kindle or whatever he's doing. And it just gives me that nice change of pace and some good dad son time.
I like that. Know that if you're working with Eric as your coach, there's going to be a lot of squats involved, whether you like it or not. So dress appropriately and be prepared. I think my legs were jello for the next 2 days after Eric and I did a plating session, but I enjoyed it.
And the easiest thing is just to learn to like it.
I like that. My routine I've picked up, because same thing, I was getting just, it did feel like Groundhog's Day of just sitting around the house all day and just doing Zoom calls and sitting in front of a computer. Whereas here in the office, I would walk around, you would go have like one-on-one meetings. And so you're physically up and moving more. But at my house, I was literally just sitting there staring at the computer all day. It just felt like no end in sight. So I picked up doing exercise. I'd always kind of do it, but I went to a class kind of around lunchtime, which again was canceled. So I picked up running and actually a couple of healthy habits. You know, my water intake went up so that I was always hydrated when I was doing these calls. And I would get my exercise first thing in the morning. So it was already kind of out of my system, because if not, I would feel by kind of that mid-afternoon, I would start to feel antsy, like, man, I've just been sitting here all day. But I felt like if I could get that exercise in first thing in the morning, then I was able to kind of focus more at the end of the day. And I had more time back. You know, I think I've heard a lot of the folks really in this office talk about, you know, there's good things and bad things about coming back to the office, and the commute is never, I mean, most people don't enjoy a commute into the office. And I think that a lot of people were able to save that commute time. And I personally turned that into something positive, where instead of spending an hour driving all around town to different daycares and schools and driving down to the office, I took that hour and used it for myself, got up at the same time, just went running instead, had a healthy breakfast, and got up at the same time rather than sleeping in. It's a discipline for sure, but it's such a healthy thing. It makes you really feel good at the end of the day to avoid kind of that groundhog, like Zoom fatigue that everyone's feeling.
Two thoughts related to this, because I absolutely have several clients who are struggling to get out of the fire, right? They are in the fire dealing with headaches and chaos, and they can't make time for those things. So there's two things in particular I share with them that has been helpful. And I know we got about 5 minutes left here. One of them is a construct called the When Life Works list. And if you were to Google that, you'd find a gentleman share his story about the When Life Works list. And in essence, what it is choose 3 to 7 things that if you do every day or every week, it's a good day for you regardless of what happens. It could be reading 30 pages. It could be burning 500 active calories. It could be telling your wife or husband that you love them. It could be having 3 dinners with your family. Whatever it is, identify those When Life Works list items and do them every day. Just simple little things. The second thing that I share with my clients is around the lessons from the book Mini Habits from Stephen Guy. One of my favorite books. And what he talks about is that most people, they set their sights too high, right? They say, Mandy, how many push-ups are you going to do this week if you were to do push-ups, or do today if you were to do push-ups? And, your inclination is, I'm going to do 100 push-ups, right? But meanwhile, you haven't done push-ups in ever, right? So instead, do 1. Just do 1. And when you get down there, the likelihood is you're going to do a few more. And then you're going to do a few more, and then you're going to do a few more. So growth is evolutionary, not revolutionary. Find incremental steps to grow. And then one more piece, if you can associate that little habit, that little routine to something you're already doing, like brushing your teeth, for example. If you're going to brush your teeth every day, which is generally a habit, just build in dropping down and doing 1 push-up as well. And it's a lot easier to get that habit into your arsenal as well.
I like that. It's a good little trick, a good little nugget there.
Yeah, Greg, I think that's, as we're wrapping this up, I think, what you just did really encapsulates who and what Petra is. I don't look at us as a group that coaches companies. I think all of us look at us, we go into a room that we're coaching individuals. And if we coach individuals to grow and improve 20%, 50%, 100% a year, they're going to take the company with them, not the other way around, that we coach a company and the company has to drag people with it. So I really like the fact that, how you kind of ended there was about getting the individual better, and one day at a time, what do you do to get better? And I think if, as as a team member or as a CEO, if you can get an alignment around today, we're going to all get 1% better at something, that's going to really, really show in your company over a quarter and over a year and over multiple years. So I really appreciate that nugget, Greg. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Well said, for sure. So I think, beyond this, folks that want to hang around, workshops are really going to be a good place that you can come in and kind of check out Petra. I think on June 16th is our next Back on Track. We do have a webinar too, I believe next Monday, that if you just want to come and see what it's about. Again, workshop's a little bit more interactive, but you can come and check it out next Monday.
You'll see working from home has its benefits. As we're wrapping, Elijah knows that it's time to go throw the ball again. Say hi to everybody, Elijah. Say hi.
Hey, Elijah.
Hi, everybody. Well, our time is up here. Thank you so much for joining us at Coach's Corner. Greg, any parting words?
No, take it one step at a time, guys. We're going to get through all of this.
For sure. Thank you, guys. It was great talking to you all, and thank you everybody for watching and participating.
Thanks, guys. See y'all around. Appreciate all the support.